Welcome back to another episode of Rooted in Christ. I'm your host, Temwani, and I'm joined by the author of Understanding the Basis and Functioning of Biblical Church Government, Pastor and author Kapambwe Msimuko.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And today our guests are Lusungu and Nelson. So getting into the book, so you gave us a good background and introduction of your book and why someone must purchase it in the previous episode. So my question is on the biblical principles. So what biblical principles do you believe are essential and effective for church government?
The list can actually be quite long, Temwani. Let me mention 4 or 5, okay? First of all, we have what we call sola scriptura, okay? The scriptures only in all matters of faith and practice, okay? If that is where you are looking, and that is how you are functioning, okay? You are likely to achieve a nearly perfect, according to sinner standards, governance of the church. Secondly, servant leadership. Okay, you are like Christ, who, although they called him Lord, he turned and washed their feet. There are some leaders who behave like they are managers or bosses, okay? And the lead elder, even over his fellow elders, he behaves like he's the chief executive among them. And in some churches, he can even punish, single-handedly punish or appoint another elder, okay? Now that is not servant leadership. That is lording it over, as the Apostle Peter says, should not be done, okay? So servant leadership is another thing I can mention, okay? Then thirdly, being accountable to leadership. Now, you bear in mind the fact that I've already mentioned the fact that there is leadership even within the leadership itself, okay? In an ordinary sense, the church submits to its eldership, okay? But in the eldership submits to that same eldership, individual people, and the collection of some to one who is taking a lead at a particular point, okay? There is no one who must be in the church and there is no leadership over him, okay? The church was not structured to function that way. Fourthly, work for unity, for dignity, for peace and fairness in the church for every member, not just a member, okay? Without this, the principles that we have mentioned above the 3 won't do. It will be a waste of time, okay? And so, work for unity, be united, okay? It doesn't mean you think in the same way, but at least you agree, especially on the essentials. Aspire for the dignity of another person rather than demeaning them and making them feel low and worthless, okay? You will lose them and they work against you. Work for peace. Be fair, okay? Fair play, equity or something like that. Those are some of the things that will make it possible. And last thing I want to mention here is consistency in interaction between leader and flock. Flock to another member of the flock. Leader with another leader. You know, that kind of thing where it's like you are mixing, you put sugar and then you do so that it is homogeneous, you know. It must be like that in the church. I think that is what I can say.
Thank you very much. So, Lusungu, do you have any questions for our speaker?
Yes, I do. Actually, quite a number of the roles and responsibilities which have been covered in your book. And I saw there was a mention of elders and deacons. Mm-hmm. So maybe if you could clarify under the roles and responsibilities of elders and deacons, and touch on pastors as well. Are pastors elders as well, and their roles and responsibilities too?
Yeah. We live in a generation that is obsessed with titles. Okay? And what has happened, what we don't find in the Bible is now what is, okay? Let me give an example. In the Bible, pastor was normally always used as a function rather than as a title. Okay? It is shepherding, which is feeding. That term emphasizes the issue of feeding the flock. Bishop or overseer, okay, emphasizes the issue of the idea of looking after or caring the flock. Okay? Inspecting, I come to you, I inspect how you are doing. In this, that is oversight. Okay, overseeing. Are you well? Is your temperature high or low? Do you need to go to the hospital? Okay? Issues like that are what we call oversight or overseeing or bishoping. Okay? And then there is now ruling, presbyteros from that kind of word in the Greek, where you are the seat of power. And in this case, therefore, enforcing, you are governing by enforcing biblical rules. Okay? You are making policy. You are providing material necessities for improvement in the church. Okay? For the entire flock. Okay? Providing necessities, guiding, and so on. Okay? That now is what is ruling, which is we say elder, so and so. Okay? Now, apart from these are, you see, these are functions rather than titles. But now we are used to pastor this, the other one is elder this, the other one is a bishop. At that level above what, you should know that in the church, the authority is in the office of elder, not in the person not in the function of pastoring or in the function of overseeing. Mm-hmm. It's in the office of elder. I hope that helped. Now deacons. Okay, I come to deacons. Deacons, what necessitated the office of diaconate was to relieve the elders. They exist to make the office of elder efficient, not so much to be a parallel authority or a parallel rule within the church. That office doesn't have any authority in it. It functions under the authority of the elder. But it is an official function, meaning that a deacon is not like an ordinary member. Because an ordinary member may act voluntarily, but a deacon acts officially because you are set apart, hands are laid on you, and so on. Okay? It's like you pledge. You say some vows. to be available for the elders. Well, for others, they may or may not, as they are available. Okay, so it's an official function rather than a voluntary action. Okay, but that office functions to kind of facilitate for eldership. The eldership will tell me, I am pressed here, do this for me, and you do that. Under the authority.
Okay, thank you. That does clarify a lot for me. And from what you've said, I wanted to ask how these contribute to the well-being of the church and what you think are the essential qualifications for the elders and the deacons.
Let me begin with well-being of the church. Okay? You have faith, you are satisfied. Okay? You have someone that has come to look at you. How are you doing? And so on. Okay, you're looking nice, no, you're looking sick, no, okay, and they take necessary precautions to make sure that you are rid of the illness or you are encouraged, promoted, okay? And then you are provided with all that you need for life and godliness, okay? What do you think would be the result in an environment like that? Okay?
There will be growth.
There will be growth, there will be peace, there will be dignity, there will be all those things that we mentioned earlier on, okay? And then everyone happy will lead to growth. When they had appointed the deacons and the elders were doing everything that they were doing, we are told in Acts that and the number increased. And even the priests who had been stubborn, okay, came to faith. Okay, the church now becomes very productive. Okay, what was the next question?
The qualifications that I
The
said.
qualifications,
Yes.
okay? For you to be a leader, you have to meet certain moral qualifications of the Bible. Okay? The Bible doesn't list gifts. Okay? People that are saved are gifted variously. And the one who becomes a leader will continue to use the same gifts that they had before they were appointed. Okay? Those gifts do not metamorphosize or change. They don't change into higher gifts. They're the same gifts of teaching, which they were using to edify a fellow saint. Now you're using them in ruling the saints and providing what is according to your office, the same gifts. So everyone is gifted and they'll function the same way. But it is the moral qualifications, the quality in godliness that is required for you to be a leader. That you may use these gifts, these tools, in a godly manner. Because you can actually abuse the gifts. Okay? God gave you a very good voice to sing, and you can go and sing in the pub. And other gifts are like that. You can oppress the saints or for other gifts that God has given. I hope that was...
Yes, it was really helpful. So, though I was looking more specifically at how one qualifies to be one, if there's a certain character or as many as are saved perhaps can be elders and deacons, like what draws the line?
Okay, the Bible takes for granted that all people that are saved can be elders if they are male. Okay? In 1 Timothy chapter 3, we have the gift of office bearers. And there is 16 of them listed there. Okay? The elders must meet the 16 that are listed there. 16 or 17, okay? Beginning with, I think all the others fit there, okay? Being blameless, okay? And then now it goes into the specific issues of blamelessness there, okay? And the ending probably somewhere, their wives, although it said under deacons, okay? If you read the book, it's very clearly explained there, okay? Where their wives, their wives must not be talkers of,
gossipers. Okay, thank you. That is very helpful. So it is encouraging and should make one desire to read the book to understand these qualifications more. I like to ask questions. I just have one more question. Which is church leaders. There's a statement that you said that it should have been the other episode, that it should be humbling or food for thought that God's authority is placed in the hands of men. So how do you think church leaders, mere men, can balance their authority with humility and servanthood? And maybe I can add, seeing how these days in the church, leaders are almost treated like God. So it's like they're being worshipped. So how can church leaders balance their God-given authority with humility and servanthood?
Yeah, I think I touched it a little bit. First of all, you realize that you are one of the gifted members, whom God is pleased that you serve His flock in the capacity as a leader, okay? Shepherd. In the book, if you go in the book, I have explained very clearly that in the order in which God states things, especially the flock is the highest, because it's the precious purchase of the Lord Jesus Christ. The qualifications, okay, are necessary because they qualify you to be that. Okay? And then you as shepherd, you are here. Okay? So what necessitates your office is the flock. If the flock is not there, you would not be a shepherd. Okay? But if the flock is there and you don't qualify, you will not get there as well. And so these two things should humble you. You look at the flock, the value that it is. Okay? And ask, like Paul would, okay, who is equal to the task? Okay? And then you also look at the qualifications. Okay? Blameless. And then the things that are listed. There is no job in the world that asks for those kinds of things. Okay? You go and look and so on. Okay? They will ask for where you learned and so on, whether you have, but that is only talking about quality, right through. Okay? And all those things are quite humbling. And it requires you not to think that I have arrived, but rather to always wonder, under the scrutiny of the Holy Spirit, what will help me to be this? Now, if you are always like that, I think you will be able to get there and be able to deliver.
Okay, thank you so much. I think I am done with my questions and you have answered very well. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'll hand over to Temwani.
All right. Thank you for that question and those questions. Nelson, do you have any questions for the pastor?
I think most of the things have been shared, and the questions I prepared after reading the book, I think I won't ask them because you've answered some of them indirectly. And that doesn't mean I don't have a question. Of course, I do have a question.
No, go ahead.
Just to stretch what Lusungu asked, you've talked about the qualifications of elders. And I would just love you to explain how or what procedure, biblical procedure by the way, should be taken in appointing these elders. I know you've already touched the qualifications, but what procedure, what biblical procedure should be taken in appointing these elders?
If you are reading the scriptures, you will not really find a place where it is laid down now, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number, okay? Mm-hmm. Because much of this, I think it may be taken for granted. Because it is a natural process, okay? It is something that is reasonable to do. Today, a lot of people are telling people first to do this, next to do that, next to do this, and so on, and so on, okay? In the book, I've gone in some detail, but let me summarize, compress it. First of all, there is the need to identify through prayer and interaction. In prayer, you are asking God to shine the light upon many. And who is it that He has called to participate? That's in prayer. Because you have the eyes of men, that the lenses are corrupted by sin. And there is the pure eyes of God that see the inside of us. Say, sure. Okay? Mm-hmm. Then by interaction, okay? Because God also uses natural means, okay? It is the light of nature that is guiding here, okay? And so you interact with people. And that interaction will tell you, no. It cannot be this one. If this one is available. Or this one is available, but for this kind of thing. Okay? This one best suits the situation. Okay? Now, that discrimination is not unfair. Okay? Because that is now you are using the qualifications as a sieve. You are saying, although this person has all the qualifications, his wife is a talker, or his children will bring him down because of the way they behave. You know, you are picking a qualification, okay? He's an excellent teacher, but he is a drinker, a drunkard, or something like that. Okay? And so you see that way. So you identify through that, okay? Then the next thing that you do, you train. A lot of churches are looking for already trained people from other churches, okay? They make announcements and no one is showing up, okay? You train, you identify, then you train those that you have identified. And then lastly, you test for readiness or for ripeness for office. Okay? And then fourthly, you install those that are ready.
Thank you very much. It's funny how you are answering all my questions that I've prepared, and I'm forced to come up with new questions to ask. I was tempted to ask, how do you carry out the test? And just the test. But you've mentioned that in the preceding chapters. But I want to ask that question now. I'll just proceed to the next question.
I can answer just maybe by one word. In the case, for example, of an elder, give him the pulpit. Okay. Assign someone that you are testing, maybe on internship. Okay, to deal with a particular case that there is. It will tell you the handicaps and how you can.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And these qualifications, for elders, it's not like they are born with it, right? And so since they are not born with it, how can the church ensure that these men are well equipped with the necessary tools for them to effectively carry out their roles and responsibilities?
Yeah, just as the men understand that they themselves are sinners, the church itself, the flock, must identify the fact that these are mere men like them. Okay. Before Nelson was ordained, okay, we were just suggesting and doing things together. But then he was ordained. Okay. Speaking, you know them, just like our wives know them. Okay. At church, they are calling you elder or pastor, and when you are back home, they say honey and those kind of things. Okay, because you are a man to them. Now that understanding is helpful, and the wife would therefore be more helpful to the person, to their husband, because they realize certain things about them and are able to appropriately support them in their weaknesses. So that same way, when the congregation realizes that these are mere men who need our support, the first thing they will do is to pray for them. Okay, that God may enable them to do the things for which they were called, so that they are not distracted by their authority, okay, and get obsessed with being big rather than useful. Okay, next, you submit to their authority as a church. Okay, submission is important because governance depends upon it. Discipline depends upon it.
Discipline.
Okay. If you are not doing that, they are not going anywhere. I think that must be understood, okay? But also love them dearly, okay? They are instruments in the hands of God to do you good. In another sense, that the things for which they are doing for you to make sure you're okay, they will be answerable to God on the day of judgment. A stricter standard of judgment than common, James tells us. Okay? Love them very dearly for the things, for the sacrifices they are making and the accountability before God. Okay? And then lastly, double honor. Okay, we fail here most of the time. Okay, remunerate them well so that they do not worry as they serve. A laborer deserves his wages, and therefore you do not treat them as second-class workers. Let me just remind you the category in which they fall. Okay? Under the sun there is the government, and there's a president there as head. And then he's got ministers under him. Okay, those are leaders. That's the civic structure. At work, you have the president, the managers, and so on. At home, you have the parents, the father, and so on. In the church, you have the elders. So they are ruling club. In the book, in fact, I may have compared them to president, the class of governors. In Malachi, when the man was, God was complaining what they were giving to him, he challenged the people, try to give these things to the governor. Why do you think he chose the governor?
He's the one people think.
Because he was a ruler. So the Levites who were doing this and so on, okay, were of a ruling class. So give them these things, and that is how you make them effective.
Thank you very much for that insightful advice. Viewers, as you can see, this is a very sensitive topic. And just one last question, a very practical question I would love to ask before I hand over my mic to Temwani. Given your years of experience as a missionary pastor, I believe you've had to handle so many issues. And among the issues, I think, is ordaining elders. So I would just love you to give an advice to a church or churches that are struggling to find qualified elders in their churches. What advice would you give them?
First of all, you reap where you sow. And you also reap when you sow.
Okay, I didn't see that one.
Okay. And there is a season of doing the sowing. And then you wait for the season of reaping what you sowed. If you only wake up to start looking for who to appoint when someone dies or they quit or they're transferred, you are not, as an eldership, doing what you ought to be doing. I talked about identify, I talked about train, I talked about test and then install. Okay? You must prepare such that you have a reservoir of men, okay, ready, okay, to be appointed. If you don't have, it means that as an eldership, you actually are just sleeping. Or you are the kind of eldership that fishes where you did not breed the fish and so on. Or you go to harvest where you did not sow other people's fields. Okay? I think that is what I would say concerning that. You must first of all create a pool of leadership from which to draw. Okay? I think that's also an area of making sure that there is harmony within the church in terms of what you believe. Okay? When you are training, you are preparing people of like mind. The Apostle Paul says, okay, it's the T, or triple T, quadruple T, QT.
QT, yeah, I remember that.
Okay, QT means that you, that is, QT is 2 Titus 2. Okay, the 4 QTs. Okay? What you have received, pass it on also to others who will be able to handle. I mean, what the Apostle Paul is saying, you received this baton in a
pass it on.
You run as fast and as faithfully as you can to hand it to your team member. You don't hand it because to whoever you find is lying hand, you give it. You give it to your team member, who must also hand it over to another of your team member until you've run the rest. That's how you win. Okay? If you received something else and you handed up what you didn't receive, you failed. Okay? I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah, that's very helpful, which makes me think of, I think, how prone we are to deciding who to choose to put in the office of eldership. I think we might be just looking at outward performance of an individual. Those who attend every Sunday service, those who are active, yeah, they are the ones who should be passed on the baton, when in actual sense it shouldn't be like that. That's very insightful. It's a very tedious job, I see.
It is.
Very. Let me not ask a lot of questions and pass the mic to the chairperson, Temwani.
Thank you, Nelson, and thank you, Pastor Nkumbula, for those insightful questions. We have come to the end of our episode today. Thank you for tuning in, and as I said, the book is available on Amazon and other links that are available in the description. It is a very helpful book on the principles, on the roles, on the responsibilities.